Falava. Thank you for joining me today. First, we ask our Heavenly Father, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit to bless this show with divine wisdom. This is a show where we celebrate, debate, question, interview topics that are happening around the whole of Moana Pacific. I've once again and joined again by Professor Dr. Afualo Wood Sailele Samoan, economist and academic and former MP who's a leading voice on education, economic development and national growth in Samoa. It's a pleasure to have you on again, Professor. Welcome.
Yeah, Tarafa, Mike. And it's all as usual. It's a pleasure that we resume our normal Saturday class, and we hope that whatever we share in the narratives will also reach every corner of the earth, and particularly our followers and the stakeholders of our program and the listeners. And from there, really, they should also be blessed with what we are going to share. Yeah, Talofa.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor, for your time. And look, I want to go straight into it because we started a little bit later. I just wanted to say, there was a big week in Parliament and a lot of stuff, a lot of issues coming out of Samoa. And the budget has been passed, which is good. And the country's still alive, I hope, as you live in Samoa. Professor, any feedback, and how was your week? Professor, I'll start off with that. How was your week for the week? Quick recap.
Yeah, things moving as expected. The weather, we're still experiencing, the disturbances in the weather pattern. And I think this is because of the El Nino effects. Yeah, and so far so good. Now, on the general cost of living, it's the same situation. People are still complaining, but hey, life is so the government can only do so much. But we can only hope that the people will get sufficient financial resources to take them from one week into another week. We are also witnessing an influx of members of other churches, particularly the Methodist Church, for the annual conference. That's both the women and the general conference, and other. I think something as well and others. So yes, and lately, it has been quite cool, here inside. The temperature went down to somewhere like mid 20s, which is unusual, but because of the weather patterns, it's but so far so good. The fuss about the parliamentary debate over the budget is over, but the real work has just begun. The real work has now just begun. That means the ministries and government entities that are responsible for collecting revenue, they now have to work hard to collect those revenue to finance the budget. So let's hope for the best. And at least the whole situation is somehow mellowed down a little bit with the opening of the strait, but anything can happen. So far, so that's where things are at the moment. Yeah. Schools are now on their holiday. Some of them. The university is on holiday with university subsidy. So in about a week time, um, enrollment will start again. So, and that also gives us a good time to breathe. So because in the second semester, yeah, I will teach three courses. That's yeah, 300 level Bachelor of Commerce final year, and then one course in advanced economics. So it's quite busy.
Very busy for you guys
So
as
that's what
teachers. Yes, Professor. You guys have a very hard role, having to do your job to educate the future of Samoa. Last week's issues, when I was looking back at the videos, it really had to do with the shortage of our doctors and our teachers. I was just thinking and recapping, thinking, man, really it comes back down to the government, to making sure that the platform is laid down, so then everything else can be done to make it easier for the teachers, the doctors, the police officers to do their job properly. But a lot of the issues that are coming to arise at the moment really comes back to the platform is not laid out properly. And I think this is where it comes to our biggest topic, where when you really run down to the nitty gritty stuff of this, what we're talking about, it comes back to the style of government leadership. And the topic at the moment is we're talking about capitalism and socialism. That's the style of leadership that's happening in Samoa. It's slowly changing by the looks of it. I wanted to kind of hit more and drive more into this area, Professor, because this is your area. A lot of the stuff, the reflecting back on Parliament. I just want to start here because it's on my list here. This Whanawha Vai project, which is something to help assistance for people in the districts, which is a great initiative which was brought up from Tautua, you being the leader of the Tautua party. But this story that I've seen, that the NUS, some of the students, they weren't able to see their school results because they haven't paid their fees. Now, a lot of these kids are saying, well, we were looking to get this help and from the Whanawha Vai project, but there's no funds, and I just wanted to get your reaction on this story, Professor.
Yeah, probably later on we'll look into some fundamental demarcation of capitalism and socialism. Yeah, this is Marxism, and of course communism. Anyway, coming back to the problem that some of our students have in the US, that's true. I saw it. They were not given their results based upon that their school, the tuition fees were not paid, and they were supposed to be paid by Whanawha Vai, the various Whanawha Vai, and so it's really sad, So I don't know what is happening, but that's the standard university policy. Whether you're on scholarship or a private student or any funds that comes from somewhere, the university will not release your results until you pay your debt. And unfortunately, those students tend to be falling into that pit. But the Whanawha Vai, we did discuss this before. And yes, it was originally it was our idea, but the whole purpose, we looked into it, and education was not part of that vision.
Okay.
This fund, which is now with the Whanawha Vai, it was the reallocation. You are now. Remember, when you deal with this, it's simply the transfer of the ownership of the leadership. So rather than government being at the heart of the distribution, you set up another arm, and therefore, that arm becomes fully responsible for the distribution of this wealth, and the whole purpose was for uh, the leadership, for the villages and the districts. So the selection of the qualified personnel to man those will come out of various districts, which is good, And so once you delegate that responsibility to the villages and the districts, you give them, and they know they feel good about it, because now they tend to decide on what projects that would be very successful for them, and for. But education was never part of that, you know, because under the manifesto that we had with the Chachua, um, should we come into power, we would set up a different institution altogether. It's called, um, it should be called the National Education Fund. And I know when Dr. Tulepa heard about this, he was really, he wanted I heard this from my other friends, So if we set up something different, specifically for education, then that will, will avoid this issue, which is but now it's under one roof. So having said that, when you have it under the development, because these are development projects, but the way the funding for education, it's completely different. You're targeting the development of the human resource, and often you put in this way that make sure that the fund will be not just the realization of the potential outcome towards the future, but it will also encourage the parents to participate in that. So therefore, it's best if we set up a separate institution like NPF, like NUPIFA, that will be responsible for that. Because at the time, because there was a grant from New Zealand and Australia, which when the program was finished, the budget took over. That was administered under the education, the Ministry of Education. And then, but now that budget is now under the Fonofama. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it seems like the things are starting to kind of come under one branch, and this is what I'm trying to move towards, Professor. This style here. Do you think that this style is more of a? Just a quick answer here. This little section here. Is that more of a socialist type of style leadership? This version, kind of hiding the 405i, it's like a branch where a hub where you can pretty much bring different sectors under that hub into that little 405i hub. And so would that style, Professor, in saying that, is that a socialist move, or would you see that more of a capital type of pattern, would you say?
You just touched on the heart of the problem. See, there's a difference between setting up an institution like, for example, NPF, the National Provident Fund. This is for, it's an investment scheme for workers. So rather than having this fund, which was managed under the Education Ministry of Education, but it's now under the Fonofavai. But they should look at that fund separately, like creating an institution which is specifically catered for education. You know what I mean? And then it will end up something like NPF. It will have its own management. The fund will be invested so that it will generate more revenues, and then at the same time it will provide the assistance for the education. And without the hand of the government, so the government is not really partaking in that, but it's now all coming under one roof, which is completely different now.
So what
And you
happened,
can see,
Professor? What happened to the MPF? Like, is that a? You say it comes under the Whānau That means it no longer has its own kind of branch. It comes under the branch of Whānau but so that
yeah,
means Whānau the MPF does no longer exists now since the new government has kind of axed it. You're saying?
yeah. See, before the grant that was with the Ministry of Education, that was provided for by New Zealand and Australia. This was before the people took over, and that part of that was to promote free education.
Yeah.
Free education, whereby from year 1 up to year 11, but now it's changing now. They were all paid, the tuitions were paid plus materials and others too. So they were paid for that. And after some time, when the grant was finished, the government through the budget absorbed it, and that was during the last years of Dr. Tulepa's, Dr. Sailele's, HRPP. And of course, there were some accusations of mismanagement of some funds by some principals. But hey, look, this happens, But overall, the project was being looked after well under the Ministry of Education. Now it's different now, and then the Whānau now. That fund is now with them, under them. But the only difference is that if you look at Nupifa, it was created under, I think it was during HRVP's time. The mandate, the constitution was created specifically to help workers, build some sort of financial security when they retire. It was up to 55. And then you can still, if you can still work, depending on your health. Yeah. But if you take away, so it went from 5 up to 10% now, the contribution. So when I look into it, how to solve that problem, especially the education problem, it's best if we create something similar like that. You know what I mean? The model. But that model will only focus on education. And then we have another model, which is now under the Whānau that is for development of the resources. Now we look into what are the resources. We look at land, labor, then capital. So because entrepreneurship comes under the education model. Are you following?
Yeah. I'm getting there. I think I am understanding what you're saying, Professor. It's just the thing that's mixing me up is the Whānau how it's gone under that branch. I think I'm just wanting to know a quick context of, so the fund that was there before, so it comes under the Whānau. That means like the Whānau has the power over those funds that was once into that separate fund before under Dr. Tulepa's time. Now, when they came in, that fund has now gone into the Whānau branch. And how much money was in that branch, Professor? Was that is that the one government grant fund there you're talking about? Or is that a separate, the $18 million fund that usually goes out to the people? Or is that a different fund?
Yeah, that was a fund from New Zealand and Australia. It's for free education, but then when the duration of the funding was completed, the budget took over that, the national budget, and Dr. Sailele. So that has been, but now it's changed now. And I saw some of the arguments from some that there were mismanagement of some funds by other principals. It did happen. But but at least those caps had been identified.
Yeah.
And I still feel that it would be best managed under a specialized education fund. Like if it's under the Ministry of Education, that's fine. But for all other development programs, the development of labor, the development of other resources, capital, and land would have to be, under the phone of um, which is interesting. But let's see what is happening.
So,
Because
Professor, how much money do you know if out of that fund? Like, do you know? I know I'm putting you on it. I wish I had the figures in front of me, but do you know how much money that was in that fund at that time?
that was quite significant. Was quite significant because it was under the budget of the Ministry of Education at the time. Yeah. So
I remember.
I can't recall.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
I remember because there was a fuss between the teachers, and then some people were not happy about this transferring under the 405I project, which really doesn't make any sense at all. Now, as I said earlier, we're trying to we're going to come around and we're going to be talking in and out of the capitalism and socialism, the differences between them. But another subject that we want to move on, which is kind of linked to this, Professor, is the gray area that this provides. The 405I has a gray area. When you put it underneath hub, there's a gray area. Now, the next subject I want to kind of push towards is the drug testing that happened in Parliament. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this in, and it's connected, and it's weirdly connected, is because yet again, Fiamare, if we've seen online, Fiamare had said some things like, why do we need to do this drug testing? Like, do we need to do it as parliamentarians? Because we're the MPs. And obviously the side of Laoli have been trying to say, mate, you don't want to help the drug, like we have a drug problem at the moment. But I could see what Fiamare was trying to say. It's almost like what Fiamare was really trying to say is it's the same issue with the 405I. You pretty much make these mandates, but there's so much gray area that there's no lines drawn. Professor, could you help me out here? Do you see what I'm talking about here? There's no laws, there's no policies. What do you think about this, Professor?
As I was watching it, I laughed. Because it seems that the whole, argument, the commotion of the argument has been that Fiamare, the South Abito, did not support the move to have mandatory testing, drug testing for. But that's not the case, Fiamare was right. She was absolutely right. It has to be a law first, because I know that under the parliamentary, regulations, if you commit an offense as an MP, if you commit an offense as an MP, then the law will deal with it. And once the case is finished, and whatever outcome, if the outcome comes up to be that you are guilty, as long as the guilty, the equivalence of that guilty is over, I think 2,000 or 3,000 tala. So, because the punishment, they are based on units, on units. So if it's over 2,000, I think, then automatically you lose your seat. That's in parliamentary rules, So we know that it's there, but this is different. The issue is different now because it's now coming down to be mandatory. But you can't force this. There has to be a law to to put that into practice. And I feel for the Speaker of the House, I feel for him. He was trying, his
Yeah.
steps.
Yeah.
But and I think, but at the end of the day, in all good faith, we need to be tested, but it has to be done properly and legally. So the mayor was right. First, if whatever exists under the current parliamentary regulations and laws, if they are not sufficient to warrant, um, the the legality of it, then they have to create one. So as usual, ministries where issues would arise would work with the AG's office, and then they would do the consultation, with the public, and then they write the law, and then the law will, will stay through their minister to parliament, and then of course we'll go through the normal like 3 stages of proceedings. So once that is done, then officially it becomes a law, and nobody is above that, including the the Faipule, nobody. But at the moment, there's nothing like that. The laws that they have do not sufficiently warrant, any whatever accusations that the mayor was not. No, the mayor was right. Do it in the right way, and then look into the existing laws. If they are not sufficient to disqualify an MP, then put it through the normal process. Let us debate, and then that's it. That's it. It's simple, very simple. And there's every right to reject back. So for me, as a former MP, I was laughing and I looked at, oh man, this guy should do it in the right way. But in all good food, the pride is good. I'm not against, but it has to be done properly. Like I said, there are existing, parliamentary rules. Like if you are found guilty, it happened to some of the parliamentarians, So, but it seems that they are not sufficient because there is, either they raise that amount, 2,000 to 3,000, or lower it down. Because it's one thing. One unit is equivalent to about 100 tala, and then from there you assess. So the argument which created a lot of discourse on the social media. There's nothing wrong with the public, saying that they don't support this, they support this. But a lot of those arguments were based on emotional discussion. But it has to be done properly. That's all the mayor was saying. And for me, I fully support the initiative from the Prime Minister and cabinet. But hey, why not do it? But they started with make it for everybody, because including us, because I'm also a public servant too. So I have not. Sooner or later, that will also come to us at NUS. But then again, one of the other issues that comes with this mandatory testing is the timing. Shall we say, okay, next week, 8:00, certain date, we will come to your institution? Is that the most effective way of doing it? No. It has to be, you don't have to expose that, otherwise, they won't be ready for it. So this has to be, like, you go for spot checks. This is when you do auditing. You don't just, yes.
Has to be a
you don't just
random.
no. When you do spot checks or, the randomization, I think that's fair enough. So that's one of the concerns, But I fully support, the testing, and I don't think any of the MPs who were just said got positive.
I think that's the thing that I'm, looking at this case here. This is where you have to think a little bit deeper here. From the base level, yes, we are trying to fight drugs in Samoa. That's one thing we all agree on that. But I think it's the fact that just say the Prime Minister has said, hey, we're going to make this a mandate. We're going to make the new rules. I want to talk to the Speaker and just say we're going to do this. I mean, this is the problem that I find that arises within, it's like, hold up, but these guys are MPs from their districts. These guys are leaders, they're not just little kids, in other words. You can't just say, well, I'm the Prime Minister, and because I'm the Prime Minister, I feel like we should all have a drug test. We're all got to have a drug test, and that's where we have problems here. You're talking to a high chief here, you're talking to a higher leader to their village, so it's not a small thing here. And so I think this is where politicians play a little dumb here. It's like, politics is a power game, and it's very clear here. If you give a little bit to these people, just like what Fiamare said, it could be drugs today, tomorrow it could be something else, and the day after, what's next? And this is the point that we're trying to make here. So I commend Fiamare for what she stood up and said that for what it was. But, Professor, I'm trying to link this back to what we're talking about, the whanawhawai, because it's such a grey area. Coming back, and I'm saying with the whanawhawai, the reason why I'm saying that, because there's no lines. When you put the education fund, like taking it back to what we were talking about before, you put the education fund that was there before with Tuleapa, it was separate because there was no whanawhawai. And then you got the whanawhawai coming, and then you bring that fund that was the money going to the education, and it comes under whanawhawai. That means whanawhawai can pretty much do any new rules. For example, this is what I'm trying to say. I'm the Prime Minister now. Let's give $150 to the people. Everyone in Samoa gets it under the whanawhawai. You see that control aspect I'm trying to say here? The point isn't $150 is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But it's the fact that that person, which is the Prime Minister at the moment, has that much control to just say, well, because we got money from this district, we got money from this education, and it's all under the whanawhawai, I can just say this and I can say that. And that right there, Professor, is dictatorship in my eyes.
Yeah.
So, Professor, what are your thoughts? Is that dictatorship formula?
Yeah. See, it's really about the control. And if you look at the demarcation of socialism and capitalism, the government under socialism, it's about the control of those resources. So now the establishment of whanawhawai, although that we had different, expectations, it seems now, that control is now there because it's going to, in the future, if FAST is going to be around for some time, this would be the most powerful, government entity in the future. It will be even more powerful than the Ministry of Finance. Yeah. I'm telling you this. Yes. Because so far, 2 million multiplied by 51, that's a lot, That's more than 100 million. And then, of course, maybe next when they come next budget, it's 3 million. So it ends up like in the future, you're looking at 1 billion, or maybe 500 million that goes into this. And boy, since the inception, which started under Fiamare, I think the framework, as we expected, was there, but the regulations, the policies and regulations need to be strong enough. They need to have teeth to make sure that this is your money. This is my money. This is your money. This is taxpayers' money. And we have to make sure that those funds are not mismanaged, because the way we look at things, and for using the Fonofavai fund to finance other social, women social and cultural, that's not, it shouldn't be there.
Yeah, yeah.
And if we put a clause under, those policies, that those funds will not be used for those activities, only for the development of land, labor capital, and entrepreneurship, then I think we'll. But the accumulation of all of these funds, because it keeps on growing, and we really have to be careful with how they're managed. And I hope the government, the first government, will look after that well, and not used as an avenue to control, because that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
That's what is happening. But by looking into the history of socialism, Marxism, capitalism, this is how they work. They create different government entities to look after that, but right from a distance, there is that invisible hand. And the sad story is that most, or I would say all of those governments that follow those ideologies didn't end well. Didn't end well, Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, you finish up, Professor. Sorry.
Oh yeah. So what I'm trying to allude to is that the distribution of those resources. I think there's something that is missing from the Fonofavai too. The Fonofavai is specifically for development.
Yeah.
Of land capital.
Very true.
Then the government should now look into setting up a proper welfare entity, and then they can put funds there, to fund, all of those social activities, rather than using that, which is not good. New Zealand, Australia, and other, even US, even Fiji, they have these programs. But you cannot lump all of this under one roof.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's the scary part, Professor. That's why I say grey area. That's why I mentioned grey area. And for us to get rid of the grey area, it's what you just said there: clause and regulations, policies. Put it down on paper that these are the rules that you can. How do we? Like, it's almost like give us the transparency, or how do we use the Fonofavai funds? That's all we're asking. That's all. It's not whether we ask or not. That's good governance. In what Dr. Slep has been trying to say, that is good governance. And if Fonofavai was to be put here in Australia and New Zealand, I'm telling you, Professor, there's no way that Australia and New Zealand will ever pass this a Fonofavai project like this. They will just laugh at other room, and they'll just all giggle and say, "What kind of stupid project is this? We need to have clause, because there'll be grey areas. Anyone can just do whatever." And that's exactly what's happening in Samoa, Professor. This is the sad thing. It's happening.
See, the problem is when you try to approach a problem with a trial and error approach, you just create and solve, as you go along. That doesn't work.
That doesn't work like that. We can't have that kind of. Now, Professor, there
has to be a strategic thinking. Like I said, I have nothing against the Fonofavai. It's a good initiative if it's done properly. I am sure if Turepa, Dr. Ilele and his government were in power, they would adopt it and do it properly and make it much more fruitful for everybody.
No,
so,
Professor,
I think it's we question the system because the implementation of the system will yield better fruits or fruits that will only ripe tomorrow, and then of course the next day they are gone bad.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
so we need to see developmental agents that prolong, that go on, that continue on for the next generation, and then whatever government that comes along, they will continue at some more positive notes on it. But if from my viewpoint, they need to create a special entity for welfare now.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. Welfare should not be used together, or it should not be, let's say, disguised under the mentorship of the phone of our life. And then if government feels like they want to raise the welfare and so on, they can use that fund. But we know that that fund is there, but not phone of our life, because that's for the developments. And we're looking at millions and billions of talent.
Yeah, I mean, that's the major thing that I'm pushing forward and that you're bringing to attention, Professor. And it needs to be screamed out in Parliament. We need to
Yeah.
eliminate the grey areas in all areas of the Parliament. Because another, when you have grey areas, I already just mentioned it, but the main part as well, when the Prime Minister sits there, or he stands there and he talks about a certain subject because it comes up, because it's such a grey area, he can go from this area, he can come and say there, he can talk over there. And so there's no rules that are just holding him to say, hey, Lowly, according to the rules, you're not allowed to say that. There's nothing holding him there. This is the issue that arises when you've got grey areas. You know, a person that's telling a lie can tell the lie for all he wants because there's no rules in place to hold them accountable. And then when the Dr. Tulepa is sitting there holding them accountable, he just looks at them and goes, this... just calm down, and really, it really comes back down to the rules, Professor. You can't play a game of rugby or any game without rules. If you've got no rules, then what's the point of playing? You can just take the ball and just run off with the ball, and this is pretty much what's happening at the moment in Samoan politics.
I was laughing when I was listening to the debate, and interestingly, what came out of my mind was the attitude of Albanese, your Prime Minister, Albo, Mr. And the media just picked up, I changed my position. Originally he was supporting this, and then all of a sudden, he stands on the other side and said, I changed my position. That is probably the most respectful way of lying. So our Prime Minister, so should say, I changed my position. You should have come from Apple script.
That's the thing. I think that's the part right there, and I think this is what a lot of you guys mentioned it before. You guys in Parliament, that you guys former MPs have mentioned. Back in Parliament, it was fun. It was a time where everyone came and spoke what they wanted to speak and have tensions and fights on Parliament and come back and shake hands. But it seems like this grey area is stopping this from happening. It's still happening here in Australia, but. Yeah.
One of the the great experiences I had when I was there. One of the senior orator from Safot, very respected. He passed away, and when he spoke in the Parliament Hall, he just spoke like he was. Speaking to his Amanga, his village, he's putting them. So when all the fuss was done, we just laughed, and then we went back, because it's now a new complex. So we went to the Valley Samo at the back, Safasa. We had a bowl of cover there, and we just laughed, we drank our cover, and then we just. I myself, I said beside the old man, I said, wow, man, good on you. And then we just laughed. That's the
Yeah,
politics is be like that. But the way I see it now, oh my gosh,
yeah,
you take it, you can't, you should not go to the grave with that aching.
yeah,
This is how life, God created us to be like that, to be very inquisitive. You know, the way things are, very critical, and then at the end of the day, you just forget, and that's a divine thing too.
In another thing, Professor, I wanted to move like another part that was said in Parliament. One of the MPs had stood up and had said that pretty much threatened. I don't know if it was a threat or a warning to the Samoa Observer that they should, tell their stories properly. And I don't know if they were kind of implying that they might, revoke their business license. I mean, this right here as well. You're really taking on the media, and the media has this duty to tell. And if they're doing, Professor, if they are doing something wrong or if a story's told wrong, is there any consequences for this observer? Like the media cannot just print anything. I mean, they have to be aware that when they put a story out, it has to have a little bit of truth to it at least. You can't just put out rubbish. So, is there any consequences for this, Professor? Or instead of going in front of Parliament and saying your business license is going to be taken away if you guys don't fix your act?
Well, uh, no, he's a good friend. He's a guy. He's a qualified accountant, but
Sorry,
he,
Professor.
letting out
Professor,
those.
can you hear me? Sorry, I want to make sure I hear the story. Sorry, we couldn't hear you at the
Yeah,
start there. Sorry, can you just repeat that start, please, Professor?
yeah. The minister who made those accusations, he is, new and custom. He is a very good friend of mine. A very brilliant guy. The question about that, but mistake with serious about those, particularly when you are in parliament. I speak from my experience too. Um, the challenge of the media is something completely different because under the constitution, the media also exists. The media also exists on its own right. That's the fourth estate. And if there is any disagreement or whatever that would come along, the court is available. The court is available, and I think it was really wise. It was really wise for the speaker to intervene because it was. I mean, the normal standing order. You cannot mention someone's name. You cannot accuse someone who is absent to rebut, and that's a typical. So we have to be careful about that. But it's good that he raised those issues, and what really saddens me is that if that is the direction where the fast government is going, if that's the pathway they're going, it seems that they are now, uh, you know, creating that demarcation between them and the media. It's not going to end well. The government will not be there forever. Now, that's true. It happens everywhere. Who knows if they continue on for another 5 years, and that's okay. But they will, there comes a time that will be changed. And the time when the Tautua was established, the media was our only weapon, because Dr. Ilele had everything, had the numbers and all the power and everything. So not only our only weapon was the media. If we feel that we couldn't do it inside Parliament, we just go call the press, and then we put, and surprisingly, to that point, Dr. Lele really appreciated it. He even used that opportunity to respond to some of, which is good. But when you try to close, that avenue, then it's not good for Samoa, because other countries our partners are looking at us. But like I said before, the minister, I cannot deny that. He's a good friend of mine, but somehow maybe the media was got into his nerves. But he's a good guy.
Well, coming back to what we are talking about earlier, Professor, because the theme of today's conversation is coming back around the communists, the socialists, or is it more of a socialism type of leadership, or is it more of a what we are considered a capital type of government? That's what we like to kind of see ourselves. But when we talk about the media here, Professor, even at the end, mentioned at the end there, where the Prime Minister had said that he's no longer got to hold press conferences. This is surely this is not a capital. This is where is the right for the people, the public, to know about certain topics and ask questions. Professor, is this again a socialist move? Does this create grey areas because we don't know what's happening?
Yeah, you raise a very important issue. If we look at the history of governments that follow socialism principles, even communism, they start from the media. They look into the censorship of the media and whatever is happening, authoritarian. If you look at, for example, Iran, see, with all the war going on and everything, they just cut off the internet. But before that, they just control the outlet in the media. And it's the same thing with this. You start with these small issues, and then eventually you come up with your own platform. But we know it. I understand what's happening, and I can only hope that the fast government under the leadership of Laudin Manitor would not take that pathway. Because you're not going to be there forever. You're not going to be there. But even if there is a change of government anytime soon, or even maybe the next election, the damage has already been done. And that's something that we don't want that to happen. We are a very peaceful country. We share our differences. Sometimes, if you look into the social media, a lot of swearing, and all of those. But at the end of the day, you will be surprised that some who swear at you, they are your relatives. But that's the freedom of expression. So if you want to continue on and make sure you open the dialogue, you've got to have a thick skin. You've got to have a thick skin. But it seems that thickness has been reduced. So they're now coming up with a surprise moment that there shall be no weekly, or I don't know, maybe a monthly, I don't know.
Press conferences.
But yet, conferences for with the meeting, and it's not healthy. No, it's not healthy. And I think one of the ways to do it is to make sure that we look into how we give out the information. If the Prime Minister feels that he's not in a clearer position, then he should delegate that.
Yeah.
that responsibility to his, the CEO,
Yes.
his CEO.
Yes. Hmm.
Like most governments, you look around, most governments, the only time the prime minister would call, or even the president, if there are some very, very, contentious issues. Other than that, the head of the foreign affairs office will deal with that. And I think, and for me, that's probably my advice. That's my advice. But to close the door like what we have just heard,
Mm.
it will only come back to haunt them sometime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Professor, it's very clear. The media is very, for them to be shut down. We definitely need to have, the media at least to kind of give that kind of feedback to the government. But I absolutely love what you're saying there. You know, I've always thought that here in Australia as well, they should delegate it to it goes towards the head of the CEO, or the head of the MP. They answer it. And I again, because it's such a grey area that the prime minister kind of moves towards here and moves towards there. Um, the part that kind of gets me in speculating, looking into it, is the fact that the people, the questions when they're being asked, it does all directly go to the prime minister. So in that kind of pattern, kind of gives the indication that the prime minister is the one controlling everything. I mean, that's just from speculation. I mean, because I've always thought, give it to the CEO, give it to the MP, let them answer it. And because I feel like the Prime Minister Lowley is taking it all on his back. But then now, instead of giving delegations and saying, hey, you answer it and you answer it, come help me out here, it's come to saying, oh, okay, we're going to cut off the media. No more talking to the media. No, like when we'll release what we need to release because of this Facebook is too much. You say socialism, Professor. If you look in America in a socialism, if you're talking about thick skin, I'm telling you now, the socialists in America, there is no such thing as thick skin. Anything you say, if it's he, she, or anything out of place, they're the first to jump. And I feel like this is where
Yeah.
we're moving towards in Samoa. Now
Yeah.
they're starting to, a minister had said, oh, the Facebook comments are too harsh. And I mean, it is harsh. I mean, we're being ridiculed online for all the stuff that we've been saying, because that's just
Yeah.
what we think is true. But we can't become soft, especially from the leadership of from Samoa. We should turn off the comments because it's too rude. Because the VAR has been broken. The sacredness between us Samoans, it has been broken for a long time since the VARs have come in my opinion. This is where I'm trying to say why I've stood up. Because of this respect, it had gone out the window. But Professor, you hit it right there. Thick skin is needed, and the direction where the media is going to say no access, it's very concerning for Samoa, Professor. Um,
Yeah. And so, being a politician is something not just special, but it's also something that you really have to get yourself prepared for. You know, so as we go along, be do as something of trial and error. You just learn and provide the solution as you go along. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to sit down and think through the process and how to respond. And that is where a good leader will come along. And I think coming back to what we talked about the press releases, I hope that in the very near future, Prime Minister Lau will change his position on that. like our friend Mr. Prime Minister Albo. I love it. When I saw the media pick that up, whatever promises that Prime Minister Albo gave, were not fulfilled. So the next time he came to the public, he told, "Oh, I changed my position." I mean, academically speaking, you laugh. You know, say, "Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wonder if he actually thought about it before coming out to explain it. You know, what was his options of explaining when they asked this hard question? You know, yeah. I think that's what comes in politics, isn't it? That's what I guess that's what politicians have to kind of face. And I think we can't move away from this softness. We can't say it's too hard. Okay, we got to just cut off the media and no more talking. I mean, I looked at this other story here. The minister Ale, and this is, and I can see because if you give it to a MP to answer, we had this case here, Ale answering 4.2 million, saying that it's got to be negotiated by New Zealand, and now New Zealand have come back and said we already finished the deal. So Ale's sat there in Parliament trying to answer, who's talking about who's going to fund the 4.2 million. I think this is where the Prime Minister has kind of said, oh, you know what, our team, we just need to just shut off the media and just...
If you look at New Zealand, Australia, even our neighbors, our friends Fiji, and the USA, and other, even Europe too, specifically speaking, there is a moment for the president, and he will, or the Prime Minister, he or she will have to address them. But from time to time, there are, ministers who lead that were given that opportunity by the leadership to speak on their behalf, because they are the ones who manage those portfolios. And then from there, clarification is much more clearer when they are given to. And they are also cautious about making sure that there is no contradiction with the boss, the boss. But if there is any contradiction, they will just say, "Oh, I changed my position on that."
Yeah.
Politics. It's fun.
It's funny when you see politicians around the world. Different politicians, their parliaments are funny. Some get heated. But then you just see all the MPs all, laughing, and when something like that happens, like what happened to the Albanese. But you definitely have to have tough skin to get into this politics, and we laugh about it. But that's the good thing I love about the Samoans. Even here in Australia and New Zealand, we're known for it. We're known to laugh about things, anything that's we're struggling with, we laugh about it, and I think that needs to come back into the Samoan politics. But it seems that there's too much tension. Something just popped up.
Laugh. Let's talk about. This is one of the senses. Remember, we have 5 senses. God implanted those 5 senses, and one of those, that's where laughing comes in.
Yeah.
And and if you cannot dwell on that, one of the most significant senses God created within us, then something is not right with you.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to laugh about. If you want to talk about politics in Samoa, that's a lot to laugh about. But at the same time, we have a lot of, it hurts, but we laugh hard. The Samoans, it hurts when we laugh about it, but then it's a healing part as well. We get over it and we move forward. I think this is the part where we're trying to say, if you're the leader, just like what Albanese had said, just admit it and say you change your position and just let it be. I think that's the thing we should be doing more in Samoa. Not close up shop and go to shut the media off, no more this and no more that. I think that's the wrong way we're going, Professor.
Yeah. Well, there are laughing clubs. You know, there are not just us, but in other places too. So maybe we need to set up a laughing club uh,
Yeah.
from the Reverend, and then you can spend an hour. You go and laugh. You know, when you finish, it's a healing.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's
you come out. Oh, your whole conscience is clear, and then it's ready.
no, you.
Maybe that's what
We
we
exactly
need to
need
say
that.
that.
We exactly we definitely need that, Professor. You know, what's coming to my mind right now is when we're talking about the media. You know, they kind of the article had mentioned before I came on and I read it about Laoli saying his move for not having the press conferences anymore is, you know, for the peace of the country. He mentioned peace, you know, and it just kind of takes me back to, you know, like this is what I say. You know, if you're going to put something out, make sure, because if you do something to someone, you know, what goes around comes around. And when you talk about peace, you know, it was Laoli, you know, this big case with Lealapule, it was Laoli that came on Facebook and mentioned into these press conferences things against Lealapule on behalf of certain things, you know, of what happened in the court case. You know, right there, that intention when Laoli did that, this is where I feel like a lot of the calls and the laughter was no longer laughter. There's no longer, you know, brother to brother, you know, politics. This is a completely different type of politics. We're talking criminal now. We're not talking about just, you know, funds here, we did a mistake here. You know, we're talking about criminal. And that's why I say, you know, I can't stop to kind of remember that for Lealapule. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you know, you guys are just supporting HRPP, but it's not about HRPP. I'm not a HRPP. I'm a supporter for what's right, you know, and you know, I feel Lealapule has been hard done by this. And now a lot of the people have turned against each other. We can't laugh anymore, you know, like how back in the day we do about politics. Because it's so serious, you know, and had cause from Laoli. Not trying to, you know, start it up again. It came back from these type of press conferences, Professor. But I was kind of astounded when he said peace. You know, I said, Professor.
You know, they say that silence is golden. You know, and that's very true. But you cannot apply that to the media. You cannot. You cannot silence, you know, the media from doing what is expected of them by Constitution. And I think that's something that we need to understand as leaders. Perhaps he changed his position temporarily for now. Then maybe in the next sitting, he will say, okay, we're going to reopen our.
I definitely hope he does. But, you know, we always wish the Prime Minister, you know, that it's just, this is constructive criticism, you know, and we are all Samoa for Samoa, Professor. You know, even us, I say it many times, you know, I criticize the Prime Minister, but I feel like I'm the biggest supporter of the Prime Minister because I criticize. I say, if you know, when people care about you, they criticize you because they want you to be better, you know. And this is what I feel like, you know, all the fast supporters thinking that I'm against the Prime Minister. I feel like I'm a very big supporter of the Prime Minister by criticizing to hoping that he does the right thing. But that's,
you know,
yep.
It's very true about what you're saying. I think for people who take it seriously from the negative side, they cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know, and that's very unfortunate. But it's important that we look at issues from a much more positive way. Even though that we would be rocked as we go along, we will still see that light, and eventually that light will begin to enlarge, and then of course enlightens your way to where you're going, and that's something that we need to know. You know, I was reading through some of even the quotations that came out of some of the great leaders like um, some of the Greek philosophers, and even Alexander the Great. Remember, he was given that special title, the Great, because of what he did. He conquered almost the known world at the time, and there was this philosopher in Greece. He just left everything and he went and preached on the streets, giving everything that he had for the poor and everything. So when Alexander came to see him, he just asked him directly, just tell me, what do you want? What do you want? I can give you, because of the power that he has everything. So the philosopher says, and Alexander was standing before, the old man. He was blocking the sun, so the old man said, get out of the sun. You're blocking my. So everybody, the generals and soldiers were there. They were shocked, when the old man told him to, move aside. He's blocking his side. And then what Alexander said is that he thought about what the philosopher was saying. And then he lamented that, it's just because he is Alexander. He is because of the wealth and everything. But what the philosopher said to him was that if it wasn't Alexander the Great's achievement, he would be like him, So that's exactly. Yeah, I think it needs some direction of where we're going, the sense of humor and everything. And because at the end of the day, for me, I have lived a fairly good portion of my life, and I thank God. I always thank God for that. I'm now close to 70 years old, and what more can I ask for? I'm always thankful to God. So whatever's left with me, I will make sure that the knowledge is being imparted on the children of Samoa. And I looked at him and said, oh boy, I live to see through a lot of these changes, and what we knew that would come along are now happening. I put a very constructive comment on one of the social media. It's about the outer space, and and the discoveries from the spaceships that we sent, how far they have gone out of the galaxy. They have never received any sign or any, that there is life out there, except for there was a radio signal that came along, but that wasn't sure. And so I made a comment about the existence of Earth, because if you look at the 9, of course 8, and then another one is a smaller planet. We are located third from the sun, and we spin around the Earth about 67,000 miles per hour. That's very fast. That's how Earth spins around the sun. But we don't feel that. We don't feel that. We just walk around like everything, but we spin around the moon, we spin around the sun, and amazingly, mathematically, the calculations tells us that there is no way that the spinning on Earth with the sun's mass, which is much bigger than us, and then the Earth. And that offsets by this speed, the 67,000 miles per second. That acts as a barrier to stabilize our position, around the solar system. And I wrote about it. So I made a comment. The the position where Earth was placed was not a mistake. It was not. It was neither by chance, because if you calculate it mathematically, it doesn't happen that way. And therefore, it is some higher intelligence, which is basically God, who put together all of this and even the outer space. And then I saw one of the long narrative from some, from the other side of the world, And so he was arguing against what I was saying, and he was trying to he was citing and quoting UFOs, the existence of unidentified objects and all of this and this. So I decided not to respond, maybe sometime, but I almost wrote back to this person and said, good, we can live in the fantasy of science fiction, We can live in the sci-fi, science fiction world, but it's a fiction, It's a fiction. It's a non. So anyway, that's the beauty of knowledge. Seeking, God will open up, and I've always encouraged not just my children, my grandchildren, my students, and my friends. Look, there's nothing can compensate for the knowledge that God allows us to access through those 7 attributes of God. Nothing. And so I'm glad that our program, sometimes we ponder outside of our galaxy, but we need to share them, to share with our friends, our listeners about this is all education, and whatever we learn, we make sure that that we share it with the others too. Yeah. So
thank you, Professor. That's all I had. For today, I wanted to talk about other subjects, but I don't want to take too much of your weekend because I know you're with your kids and your grandkids. But I'll leave that for next week. But I thank you so much for your time and for the wisdom that you've shared today. And I'll leave the floor for anything else you want to talk about, Professor.
Yeah, no, it's again, it has been a very fruitful discourse. We only do it. It's a series that we do to share what we know, we learn with our listeners and others too. And we welcome anyone with other alternative views, and that's fine with us. So on that note, God bless you all, and God bless you, Mike, and your family.
Thank you,
We'll see you again.
Yeah, have a good week.
Next week.
Yeah, have a good week.
Have a good week. Awesome.
Thank you guys for sticking in there, and after that beautiful conversation that we've just had with Professor Dr. Afualo Wood. What a man he is, for him to offer his time. He's busy with his grandkids. I can see, distracting and, I don't know, pulling faces on the side. And this is what kids are meant to do. And it's good to see that he's surrounded by love for his family, and he's offering time to give his knowledge and wisdom. But yeah, what a conversation to have with him. And to kind of unlock as well, because I feel like over time when I'm doing this and I'm learning and I'm still trying to understand. I'm a very simple person. I can dabble into the more sophisticated things of what's happening, but I get very bored easily, and that's just the truth. And I try and kind of like, how can I simplify it in my mind, and then be able to kind of like, share what I know or what I'm kind of getting fed right here. And that right there, when we're talking to the professor, it just kind of like, talking about the government, really like, I've always said Samoa for Samoa, we're all trying to, I just want Samoa to be the best. I have so much pride for Samoa, and I don't mean to kind of like pull down the Prime Minister the way he does. I just feel, injustice. I shared a little bit there. Injustice coming from just the way the fast had come in. As I said, I love how the fasts are, and colours, and the way the party, presents itself to the people. I love that whole aspect of it. Everything. It's brilliant. And it's just injustice when things are rotten in core. I don't care how bright and shiny it is outside. It's rotten inside. And so I detect rots like that kind of, if it's too good to be true, it probably is too good, and that's what I felt when the fast had come in. And it's really hard to kind of be the person like, I don't know, just something's off here. And I tend to base that, not because I'm hating, it's because, the truth, that's just the way I am. The truth needs to be called out. And even now, even till this day, I'm still learning new truths. Something that I can probably think from years ago, or even growing up, and to just every day is a new day that I learn something new, and the more we talk, the more every week going in and diving in. Like I'm diving in with these men like Professor Afualo, 70 years old, and a professor, with his education next to mine, mate, nowhere near. Like I'm not even on the table. And then even like Dr. Tulepa, and look at his statistics, mate. I have nowhere near these type of guys and the status that these guys have, and for them to be talking and being able to kind of pick their minds and kind of like ask these questions. I'm learning literally every conversation that I have with them. I'm learning. I'm not a journalist. I don't have the credentials and the words and I'm not that type of person. I'm a real simple down to earth person that believes in just doing the right thing. And as much as it's hard to go against everyone saying it's great, it's like, this is it, just come on, join in. And I'm like, I just can't, man. There's something within me, I just can't. If there's something off, it's off. And as I said, like when I critique the politics now, as I'm learning more in politics as every week as we go, it's becoming clearer now. And I can kind of see little things that's helping my mind to better understand the government of fast at the moment. And that comes back down to these little grey areas. The little grey areas for me at this moment, is the biggest problem that we're facing in Samoa. It's the grey areas where there's no rules on it. There's no rules or any attachments. There's no instructions to say in the Whanawhawai hub, in this project called the Whanawhawai, where we give $2 million to every district in Samoa. There's no rules attached to it. That's where a lot of this bickering back and forth between the HRBP and FAST is happening. And they're just going back and forward and all this stuff, right? And so if you look at the timeline, even with the Whanawhawai, where there was the, Mangele, this former MP who is now the person in control of the Whanawhawai, right? According to the rules that they put down to say this new system is going to be the candidate that was running for the constituency, that they are going to be the head, not the person who is the winner of that district. So when these little type of rules that are making it biased towards the FAST member to be in control of the Whanawhawai, it's things like that where it's like the HRPP are kind of saying, man, that's wrong, man, that's not right, right? And so then this is where the bickering comes back and forward. And so the FAST always deflect and say, stop complaining, man. We're trying to help Samoa, stop complaining. But when I'm looking at it now, I'm trying to understand, like, how can I make it easier for people to understand? The problem that we're having here is the money is being put into this whānau whāwai, and the whānau whāwai is to help, the $2 million is to go to the district to help the people kind of like with like things that they need in their everyday life, or to kind of, it's supposed to help develop their a business or development, to maybe help with school fees. It literally is to help develop the Samoan people, this $2 million. But the problem that is arising, which is pretty much the biggest topic that should be shouted on top of the world in Samoa, is there's no rules, or there's no lines or no instructions that are attached to the whānau whāwai. So that means, as I said before, the Prime Minister, under the whānau whāwai project, which we all support and say, that's great, it's a great initiative, it's good. Who doesn't want $2 million put to help their district? If this is what the FAST want, this is what they're going to get. And they are. This is what's happening right now. Congratulations, it's good. The problem that we have here is that $2 million that's being put for every district, there's no instructions. There's no clear rules to make sure, hey, if you guys have got a fundraiser to kind of give an event, money to an event for the parliament, because you guys don't have money, the rules say you're not allowed to do that and just transfer money to go to give to a government event. That's rules. There's no rules like that. So that means the whānau whāwai, it's got such a big grey area. And that's the core problem that we're suffering in Samoa. It's the grey areas where there's no rules being pushed towards it. Like there's no rules attached to this project of whānau whāwai. Like proper policies, proper clause, proper regulations. This is what they call it. These are the terms that they say in Parliament. But in the everyday person, there's no rules that are attached to the whānau whāwai. So that means the Prime Minister can come out tomorrow and go, hey, I think we should, I think everyone in the country should have a pool. You know, like don't worry about the rock pools that you have around the country. We just all invest into a pool because it helps the tourism. He can pretty much do that tomorrow. Because in the whānau whāwai, there's no laws, there's no rules to kind of say, hey, if he wants it, that's, well, under the guides of what we've got now, there's nothing stopping the Prime Minister from doing that. And that is control. That's the control, and that's the problem that we have. Right? I'm sure Laoli is a great man. I'm sure he has great positive thoughts to help someone, truly to his heart. But that doesn't mean that we play a system where, you have that much power to be doing that. That's the scary thing. So the topic came again. So the whānau whāwai is one topic. But there's so many different areas around in Samoa that you're starting to see the grey areas pop up. Like what Fiamare had pointed out in Parliament. The part where she was saying, well, as you know, the Prime Minister saying it wasn't the Prime Minister, it was the Speaker, announcing we should make drug testing for all politicians. It's a great initiative, to kind of like show people that the Samoan government are trying to fight against the drugs and stuff like that. Wow, that's great. But really, technically, you don't get any, it's not going to solve the drug problem in Samoa. Let's be real here. It's not. It's seriously not going to help it's not going to be like, oh man, since these guys are doing it, well, I reckon it's going to change the whole game in the drug world. Hell no, it's not going to, it's definitely not going to change nothing. And so that's why when these little things where it's a little, it's a little, it's not a big problem, it's not a big project, it's not a big ask for you to do a drug test for the politicians, to show that we're all clean and all this stuff, right? That it's not a big ask that they are asking for. But when Fiamare sits there and says, hey, hold up, it's not right. I could see where a lot of people are kind of take Fiamare's message to say, whoa, Fiamare, why don't you want to do the drug? This is for a good cause. It's the grey area that Fiamare is trying to point out. I know that's what she's talking about. The grey area. There's no rules. There's no policies linked to this. Okay, so the speaker says we should do a drug test, and everyone just goes, yeah, let's do it. And if you object against it, well, you're bad. Why don't you want to do it? I mean, the world doesn't revolve around. That's dictatorship. Like we all know, Laoli has the numbers to kind of say, let's do a drug test and let's everyone's going to say yeah, let's do it. Of course they're all going to say that because they're all Laoli in the fastest side. But what Fiamare is trying to say is like, no mate, don't come here and tell me, my district of Lotofanga, if you don't tell us what to do. I'm a prestigious person in this. I'm not a kid, in other words. What Fiamare is trying to fight to say back. Where's the policies? Where's the rules linked to this? Nothing. So why should we do it? And she literally said it. She said it. She said, it could be drugs today. It could be something tomorrow. And then the day after, what's going to be next? You see what I'm trying to say here? The point that is being said here. The point that I'm trying to make here is the grey area. It's the instructions. It's the rules. If they want to do a drug test, they should go and pull it through they should go and write it all up and they make it and pass it as law. So to go through all the stuff they need to do to make it legitimate. Not just come and go, majority rules, what do you reckon? And then you make people that just don't want to do it guilty and make them feel guilty and say, oh, why don't you want to do it? It's a good cause, right? That's not the point. That's the part that I'm against, is the guiltiness that you're making someone feel because of your majority rules. That is manipulation right there. That we can go down that path another time, but that's manipulation. If you're going to do something and do it the right way, well then go through the policy of changing it and making it law, if you're going to do this, these are the rules set to it, and everyone agrees, okay, good, green tick. Fiamare will definitely want to come and do it. Everyone will want to come do the drug test, right? Do it the right way. That's the message that I'm trying to put out here. We can't just run through things and just go red banner and just everything looks great on paper and then just take it for what it is. It doesn't work like that. That's not how politics works. Or that's not how good governance works. And this is where the principles of good governance that Dr. Tolepa talks about is good governance. So that's good governance. We can't use the guilt thing. That's not good governance. That's manipulation. That's control. It's dictatorship. You don't run a country through guilt and making the people look guilty. That's manipulation. And so that's my message that I'm trying to get across here. The grey area needs to be rubbed out. It's a lot to take in, but I hope it makes it easier for you guys that are listening in. But again, I hope everyone has a beautiful weekend here in Australia. And I think another topic I wanted to kind of quickly touch on, it's just on the top of my head, but I'll just run it through. It's the politics here in Australia. Now, the subject that comes up to mind is this party, the One Nation Party. It's ran by the leader of Pauline Hanson. Now, Pauline Hanson is obviously she's a member of Parliament. She's a member of Senate as well. She's a controversial, public figure in Australia and famous for her, some of the moves that she has done in politics is kind of outrageous to some people. To some people, she's a hero, and she has strong views in her politics views, and she's not afraid to say it. Now, I just wanted to say, my take on this Pauline Hanson and the One Nation politics that are happening in Australia, it seems to be going viral, or people are starting to jump on the bandwagon, so you say. But some of the things that she says, I agree with it. It's got a lot of common sense to it, and that's why so there are things in that Pauline Hanson sticks up for that has a lot of common sense to it, and when she speaks on certain topics. But the one thing that I feel like she's getting a lot of attention is the attention of the her stance on the woman wearing the burqas, wearing the Muslims that wear the hijabs and the burqa, which is the thing they cover the woman because they believe that the woman's body is meant for the man that she marries and she is with. So this is their belief. This is where that it's a religious belief, right? And so her stance and her ideology of against immigration, it's pretty ruthless in my eyes. And so there's a lot of people that are obviously, with her because of these immigration views about what she thinks is right. Like we should all be under the banner of Australia, one Australia, one nation. This is her ideology. The thing that I have a issue with this stance, because she really attacks the Muslim people, the people who are Arab background and that come from these Arabic countries that have assimilated into Australia. Now, she's calling to say, hey, these guys should assimilate to our style of how we do things here in Australia. And so she makes a point there about that, to say, there's a lot of immigrants coming to Australia. They don't even know the language. There's things that can be fixed up that should be passed through law to help people assimilate better, lessons to help them speak English so we can understand them. But there's things that they mention through as well, the things like going down the road in certain suburbs and then you feel like you're in a different country. That's true. You go to some of these suburbs where, it's full of people that believe in the Muslim faith. So then you do feel like you're in a different country, because, it doesn't seem like the normal thing that you usually see in what you would probably say in the last few years, 30 years, you would say, longer, say 50 to 100 years. You don't usually see like burqas, women in hijabs and stuff like that. So yes, it's dominated by these Arab people who believe in their Muslim faith. And it's growing. The Muslim faith is growing, and their religion, and they believe in their God, and they believe in good things, and they are good people. Now, with Pauline Hanson being a politician, trying to row her one nation together, the issue that I have with her personally, with this party, is the fact that it's just a pure, outright racist party. It's a racist party. And the reason why I say it's a racist party is because for someone to kind of have a dig at the immigrants that are coming to Australia, that are contributing to the Australian society through taxes, giving money to the government, and doing their jobs to help Australia run every day, and to target them, to say these guys believe in a certain faith, that they are the issue that needs to be fixed up, and they're not Australian enough. That's a load of BS. It's the biggest load of BS. And I'm like so disgusted on how people even can't see how racist this is. And the reason why I say it's racist, because Arab people, or people who are majority, in this case here, a majority of Arab and Indian backgrounds, which is a growing mass of our immigration population, yes, they all believe in they all believe in the Muslim faith. That's just their religion that they've grown up. Yes, they are from overseas coming to Australia. So that's just facts. It is what it is, right? Now, a lot of them, they probably don't speak English. A lot of these Arabs, a lot of these Indians, maybe a little bit of English. And so they come here and they adapt they adapt their way of life and they bring it to Australia, as long as they can assimilate to the laws of Australia, right? So they're not coming here to break the law. They're coming here to kind of like start a new life for their country, a life for their family, and help the country as well. They are literally helping the country, paying the taxes and doing the jobs that help run Australia every day. So for Pauline Hanson to have a dig at these guys and go, hey guys, we got to fix this up. These guys have to be under the one banner of Australia. That we've got a housing crisis where we don't have enough houses, so we've got to blame it on these immigrants. It's a racist ideology that a lot of people who don't think enough, they start to go behind the banner of Pauline. Yeah, we believe this is right. Don't get me wrong, guys. There are things in Pauline Hanson's party that is good, right? But what I'm trying to say here with her stance, which is pretty much her straight out, it's her signature move. It's the immigration policy. It's her stance on immigration. That's where a lot of people are kind of like, man, I'm with you, Pauline. There's too many of these type of people here. That's racist. What do you mean that type of people? That's straight racist. And the reason why, so on this topic here, what does an Australian look like? What does an Australian look like? Does it look like me? Because I'm Australian. I was born here. Does it look like the guy who scored the first goal in Socceroos? That African guy who scored the Socceroos goal in the World Cup? Is he Australian? Right? Is he Australian? Or does he look like? Is that what Australia looks like? Does the Gout, the 100, 200 meter best runner for Australia, is he Australian enough? Does he look like Australia? Like, what does Australian look like? This is what I'm trying to say about being racist. It's racist. We can't, Australia is a country, and let's not go down we're not going to go down this pathway of history, but let's just not forget the Aboriginal people here. These are the guys that are actual, the indigenous owners. These are the people that own this land, right? So Pauline Hanson, who does Australia look like? Does it look like you? Do you look like the Australian that we're talking about? This is the part where you, Pauline Hanson, are just trying to conjure this kind of politics, this politics to kind of get people on your party. But really, don't use the immigration, your stance on immigration to kind of say, this is why we think that we're going to run Australia properly. No, that's just it's a load of BS when you say that. But it's just straight racist. And the reason why it's close to me and the way I think, the reason why, and look, I take it a little bit personal, because no one likes a racist. No one does, because it's just a straight bully ideology mentality. So I'm Samoan background, and so if someone was to kind of say, just say Samoans dominated Australia, and we came in, we started to make churches, which we do. We just down the road, we got the Lamor Sa Church, full Samoan, nothing Palangi there, nothing Australian English coming here to do nothing. It is Samoan, like you're sitting in up here, right? The Efakasa in Mount Judd, that's Samoan. So if you go around and hang around Edmonton there, around there, you'll probably think that you're in Samoa. If you go to Palms, here in Bidwell, if you go to the shop here, to Norm's, mate, you go into the store, you feel like you're in Samoa. It's like, man, we're in a different country here. So imagine if Pauline comes in and says, look at you guys wearing skirts. What are you guys doing? You guys should wear pants. Come on, guys. And what are you guys doing? Do you know how how outrageous our community would be like, who the hell are you, Pauline Hanson? Who are you to come here and tell us what to do? So this is what I'm trying to say. It's racist. If Pauline was to do that in our country, and come down to norms and do something like that to our people, and start to question our immigrants and start to question, oh, who are you people? Why do you guys wear the stuff around the skirts around your? What's the ikongas and stuff? What's that all about? You know what I mean? And imagine her trying to make a stint in Parliament, coming into Parliament wearing one of those ikongas. You know what I mean? Or wearing a pulatasi to go into Parliament to say, look at this, guys. Are we Australian? Is this Australia? I feel like I'm in a different country in Polynesia. Like, this is, can you imagine how outrageous that would be to the people of Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, and all of the Pacific? Bro, she would not even survive around here. Just like how she wouldn't survive around these other areas that are populated with Arabs and Muslim faith areas. She wouldn't survive. Why? Because your remarks are racist. You're saying that you are Australia, like you are the face of Australia. And it's a touchy subject because you're white, you're English. And so the reason why it's a touchy subject, because you come from an English background, and the drama that's happened with English people coming to Australia, there's a lot of trauma there to the Aboriginal people. And there's a lot of trauma in New Zealand with the English and the New Zealand people. And there's a lot of trauma with the people in Samoa, with the English, again, from New Zealand, and the Samoan people. So we've got a long history of trauma when it comes to the English. So when an English woman comes up and stands up and says, look at these guys, they come with the burqa and they come and all do... That's racist. That's racist. And I look at the World Cup, and I look at like our Socceroos, and a lot of them are Arabs, you know, and you've got a few African background, but they're Australian most likely. And I'm thinking to myself, who is this lady to come into our parliament wearing a hijab or wearing a burqa, trying to say, oh, this is wrong. Look, immigration is wrong. We need to fix this up. Purely just to what? Like, what is your... I don't understand what Pauline Hanson's agenda is here. It's absolutely racist for sure, but I don't understand. Is she trying to get into power? Because now apparently she's preferred prime minister. You know, I saw a little story there, because I don't follow up, but I just hear it. Here or there, one nation here, one nation there. Right? And this is the joke. For people who are actually Samoans, Tongan, Fijians, and from immigrated countries, even come from different countries that have come from outside, so they've come from out of Australia to Australia, and they support her. I mean, you know, and they come and they say things like, oh, Pauline's got a point here, these people, they need to assimilate to Australian way of life. Look, Australian way of life, right? I'm Australian because I was born here in Australia. When our parents, like my mum and my dad is born in Samoa. So then at one stage, they came to Australia or New Zealand and they felt alienated. So we were the people like the Muslims, we were the Arabs, right? So then we even heard the raids that happened in New Zealand. It's traumatizing, racist, absolute racist. What they did with the Dawn raid, the raids that they did in New Zealand. So how can we allow that to happen within one nation? And then we got immigrants who actually are from outside of Australia who come in here and they say, yeah, we need to be all Australian. We assimilate to the Australian way of life. What? Australian way of life? So just understand, I am the second generation. My mum is born in Samoa. So she's born in another country to come into Australia. And I'm happy that she didn't get I'm happy she hasn't been targeted, and I don't know if she has, if she's been targeted and looked down on and you're different, God forbid, like she didn't go through such a harsh time. But it was straight racists back in the day, as you could see in the 70s and the 80s. It's racist, and then so us Samoans, we went through it. My mom and dad, they went through this type of thing. My aunties and uncles, they would have gone through this stuff. So in saying that, they weren't the only ones that went through it. The Asians went through it. The Asians went through it when they came to Australia. The Greeks went through it. We were called the Fobs, the Wogs, the Gooks, all these different type of things that they were talking to us ethnics. We all had our turn with our immigrant parents coming here for the better life of their family, right? So then the second tier, the third tier starts to assimilate properly. Then everything goes to normal. You got Arabs that they're not doing what the Greeks did back when they first came in. Us Samoans, we're not doing the same things that the Samoans did when they first came, when my mum and dad came to Samoa. We're not doing the same thing because we're just assimilating to the new country. Same with these Arab Muslims. When they come to this country, right, they're born from outside and coming in. So then, of course, they're getting used to the way of life of Australia. But their kids, there'll be no problem. They'll be normal. Just like the Africans. The Sudanese, when we had an influx of Sudanese, they came in, and then, yeah, it was different because there was a lot of Sudanese parents. But then you start to see the second generations, and then when they had kids, the third generations, you got people like Gaukau and all these other African people coming up, and we're like, wow, it's good to see they're assimilated perfectly. Nothing wrong with them. And they're Australian, just like I'm Australian, even though my background is Samoan. So, Pauline Hanson, what does Australian look like? What does an Australian look like? You tell me. Because you're being straight racist trying to come out here and trying to put your burqa on and show such disrespect to the Muslim faith. And then trying to get voters and trying to say, guys, get around me. All the supporters that support her for the immigration is straight racists. Straight racists. And then even more worse, comes out and starts like all these things coming out about the Israel, the stuff that's coming with the Israel and standing with Israel, and there should be some things that are to help the Israeli people. So you play victim for the Israelis, but then when it comes to immigrants, you fully point the finger and say, you guys should change your ways of life. Racists. And politics you're playing there. I'm okay with the Jews, but I'm not okay with the Arabs and the Muslims. Racists. That is such a typical politician. And all you people that are deluded, who especially that are immigrants or have come from immigrant families that support Pauline Hanson, it's a joke, absolute joke. These Arabs, that's what our nana and our grandpas went through. Our nana and our grandpa, when they came to this different country, they had to assimilate. They had people like Pauline Hanson everywhere. Look at these people with these iwhaikangas. What is that, a umu? What's the umu do? Oh my gosh, they're cooking on the floor. These are the racist remarks that I'm trying to say. We know, and like, I don't know personally. Thank God, because I'll probably lose my nut. Like, I just don't care, like, because it's just like, this is how I'm bred. And that's how a lot of people, us second, third generation are. We're so dear to our country. We love our people. But to kind of see our Muslim people get told by Pauline Hanson that this and that about a burqa, and try and use it as a political stunt to say, I stand up for women, the women's rights. They should have the, Pauline, it's a religion. And I just can't believe there's dumb people that actually believe, the idiots that actually believe Pauline's message. Sorry guys, I just wanted to put that out there, and just because I know One Nation is, a talking topic at the moment because I'm in politics, and looking at the politics of One Nation as I'm looking at the Samoan politics, I'm like, mate, what? That's the biggest joke here in Australia. talking about one nation and seeing our people who are immigrants or former immigrants or their parents were former immigrants start to stand with her, man, I just lost my brain to kind of say, bro, if that was my mum and my dad, like, you know, and Pauline and them are trying to put stuff on us and make us look like little, you know, like no wonder like some people just can't fight it, you know, because it's just like they love their family so much. And I love Samoans. So if I love Samoans, I also love, I put myself in the shoes of the Arabs and the Indians and these different nationalities. I'm like, that could have been my mum. That could have been my dad. Anyways, guys. Forgive me for ranting on a little bit too much about that, but you know, that's just how my thoughts are on this topic, on the One Nation. I hate racism, and I think we should just all love each other for who we are. And as long as we can do the right thing and see the positives in things, yeah, if we do the wrong, if someone makes a mistake, you know, doesn't Jesus say to forgive? You know, we try again. You know, I'm all about that. I'm not about using power politics, using you know, racist remarks, and then trying to like, because it's the cool thing to do, that everyone's like behind this one nation. Nah, wrong. You got to do the right thing. But anyways, dear Heavenly Father, we ask that you continue to bless all of us, that all the listeners that are listening, to continue to guide us through our life, guide us through our journeys on being on earth. Also to bless the people that are struggling to see the light. God, we ask that you shine and give them wisdom and help to bring them to the light. Also, we pray for the Prime Minister of Samoa and the cabinet and all politician MPs, that they are, you know, as they venture into the new budget. Also, we pray for our Samoans, all Samoans around the world, no matter what party you support. And we ask that you bless us with an abundant and joyful, loving weekend. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Yeah. ia e